Joining me now is the founder of the Digital Democracy Institute of the Americas, Roberta Braga. Roberta, thank you so much for your time. First of all, what or who is behind some of these fake postings?
So generally, we're seeing misinformation spreading on both sides of the aisle. And generally, the people that are a little bit more polarized, so the hyper-partisans on both sides, tend to be the people who are both engaging and sometimes spreading the false and misleading content. So we've seen claims that the shooting was orchestrated, and we've seen those claims from both sides. So on one hand, we have folks who claim that Donald Trump and his campaign staged it for his political gain and to help him along in the election process. And on the other side, we say we're seeing claims that it was President Biden that staged it to try to eliminate Donald Trump as a potential candidate. That's just one of many false claims that we're seeing circulating this week.
Absolutely, Roberta. So many false claims about this assassination. I mean, there was, people evaluating how people responded within the crowd. But again, when you're in the middle of something like that, you never know how you're going to respond until you're actually there. It can be so difficult to know what is real and what is not. How do you best push back when there is so much misinformation out there?
That's a great question. So I think for the average consumer, for people who are sitting on the couch just looking through their phones, they can watch for two different things. One, tactics. So we tend to see bad actors and misinformers using the same sets of tactics. They tend to be emotional language or sensationalist language in headlines. A lot of scapegoating where people are simplifying something to a degree just to place blame on the other side. We see a lot of cherry picking. So taking one specific example of something that's isolated and trying to generalize that to attribute something to everyone. So the tactics is one thing. And then I would say the sources are the other things you can watch for. So we tend to be very trusting of certain media outlets on both sides of the spectrum here in the U.S. And so we definitely encourage that people triple verify, that they check that the assertions that they're reading about have been verified by at least 2 or 3 other outlets, just to make sure that things are really being confirmed in real time.
Absolutely. That verification is so key. How has social media and the constant fast-moving nature of it changed the political landscape from your perspective?
So we really study the impact of online harms and misinformation on Latino communities specifically, but also the connection between the U.S. and Latin America. So the first thing we see is that people are isolating themselves in how they consume information. So on social media, we can self-select to consume only what we want to consume that validates our values and identities. And so I think we're less exposed to conversations happening on the other side of the aisle. And the other thing that I think social media has really done is it has amplified the most extreme assertions out there. And that makes it seem like things are much worse than they are. The majority of people are neither seeing nor believing misinformation online, but the way that we engage with information makes it seem like all that's out there is false or misleading information, or that we're so much more divided as a society than we actually are. And so I think that's kind of problematic, and it exacerbates a lot of distrust and polarization.
Well, my last question for you, what is your advice to people who maybe themselves aren't going down any of these conspiracy rabbit holes, but maybe they have a family member, a loved one, a close friend who is all in on these conspiracy theories?
That's a great question. I think all of us, I certainly do have at least a handful of family members and friends that have gone a little further down the rabbit hole than we would like. I think that person-to-person communication and conversation is really the key. There's no one piece of content that's really going to change someone's mind if they've already kind of doubled down on believing a certain amount of things, or if they're only consuming a perspective on the internet. And so really talking through that with them with patience, without judgment, without making people feel gullible or victimized or stupid. No one likes to feel that way. And then just pointing them in direction of other perspectives. I think that when it comes from a trusted messenger, like a friend or family member, people really react well to that, much more than they would if it was just a stranger telling them what to think. No one likes that.
I was going to say, I feel like that's advice that could be used in so many different avenues of life there. Roberta Braga, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.